To be deprived of the use of one's limbs is of little help to one in carrying out the work of government. It is not fitting that a hand so weak as mine should hold power when fear of Arab aggression daily presses upon the holy city, and when my sickness increases the enemy's daring. Baldwin IV was the king of Jerusalem, and that's what we're going to be getting into for this podcast on the Trails of Steel History podcast. My name is Zeph, and with me is Jack, and this is one a lot of people are asking for. So Baldwin IV is someone getting more known because of the movie, right, Kingdom of Heaven, but the movie was quite inaccurate of what happened in history.
Yeah, and Hollywood usually does that. They got to make theatrics in the movie to make it more interesting.
Yeah, a lot of the quotes, a lot of like the meeting of Saladin and Baldwin didn't really happen like the movie showed.
No.
And actually, when we talk about Baldwin IV, you have to talk about Saladin.
Oh, you absolutely have to mention him.
The whole thing about Baldwin's like reign was attacking and defending against Saladin. That was like the majority of what was happening during his time, right, as the king of Jerusalem. He led, was it the second crusade or third, or was it in between?
He was the second.
He was the second crusade.
Yes.
So he was one of the Franks.
Yeah, he comes from the Franks, and basically just real brief about the Franks. The Franks were founded by Charlemagne in the 9th century, the Frankish dynasty, and he comes from the royal house of Anjou.
Oh, okay. He was crowned king at 13 years old because of his dad, right? His dad died.
Yeah.
Right, so his reign went from 1174 to 1185. He was king at 13, took over complete authority at 15 because that's when they thought you were pretty much an adult, 15 years old, very different than today. And he died at about 24 years old because of a debilitating disease and leprosy. He also caught malaria as well. He had horrible fevers, right? Your immune system is going to be completely shot because of the leprosy, sicknesses and all of that. And he went into battle later at like around 15, 16 years old and fought against the much older, much more experienced Saladin, who had a lot of respect and, people held to very high regard, and just went back and forth with him in battles, winning most of them, I think, but losing a couple to Saladin as well. It was a big strategic thing between these two, but also political, where Saladin, who was from Egypt, he was fighting Baldwin, trying to take over the kingdom of Jerusalem, and at the same time fighting against the Muslim rebels. A lot of them were in the north, I believe.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Baldwin, basically just to understand the whole persona of Baldwin, is he's this guy. He has all the odds stacked against him, right? He's got disease. He's a young king. He's a kid, and he's got all these issues and all these different kinds of areas he has to tackle, and he's doing it while his health is constantly, day by day, deteriorating, and he has to do it tremendously. He has to do a tremendous job at it, and what you're seeing is a person who's very, very strong just in faith in general. It's a very person who has belief in himself, regardless of anything that happens to him.
Yeah, and also his men had a lot of faith in him. They followed him. Even though there were a couple guys that did go against his commands, everybody held Baldwin to very high regard. Even his own enemy, even Saladin did.
Saladin very much respected.
They used to send gifts between each other. They had a truce between each other. They trusted each other in a sense. There was one time where one of Baldwin's guys went against one of their peace treaties, but it wasn't Baldwin himself. So he was dealing with a lot of issues inside and outside, right? There was a lot of political family issues about power, which is a common thing that we always get to on this podcast with all these kings, and Baldwin is no different. He was dealing with the Saladin's invasions and all that stuff, and he was doing this at teenage years with a horrible disease. Under such circumstances, he didn't believe like he was fit to be king because of his situation, right? Many times he wanted to give up the throne, and everybody constantly refused except one guy. His name is Guy, and it just showed like a bit of the nobility of Baldwin IV, but a bit of like his generosity.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
The movie, we have to just say it right now, the movie of Kingdom of Heaven, it made these two, Saladin and Baldwin, a lot more noble than they actually were in real life. It was a lot more violent in reality compared to what the movie portrayed them as.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Saladin is, so when you're looking at this whole Second Crusade conflict, just a summary of it, you got to look at Saladin too. And when you're looking at Saladin, how Saladin rose up. Saladin basically came up under the Zangid dynasty, the Seljuks. So basically, as he was growing older and getting more power through them, he ended up betraying them. And these same people later on, he would have to continuously have conflict with them. And And eventually they were a thorn in his side for a very long time. And Saladin, another interesting thing about Saladin, he was an amazing general. Saladin was a great general, had incredible insight too. And I mean, throughout all his years, all the different very high-level opponents that he went up against, Baldwin, Richard the Lionheart, and many other people, he had constant eyes everywhere on Egypt, where his base was, against Baldwin, the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the Seljuks in the north, and just European reinforcements. And at the same time, he was trying to build his own fleet on the water.
So naval fleet,
yeah. He eventually amassed 30 to 40 ships. So Saladin, just as a basic overall character, he's very, so to speak, very, very insightful of everything around him.
Yeah, and he had to go up against, like when we talk about Baldwin IV, obviously a very good leader. Later, Richard the Lionheart, which is a very underrated figure in history, right? Like absolutely difficult opponents for him to go through. So, but when we start with Baldwin, we have to go toward the beginning, when he's around 9 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Baldwin was about 9 years old, he was being taught by William of Tyre, who was a cleric, right? He was educating him. He was a bit of a tutor to Baldwin IV. He was teaching him about a bunch of different stuff. And William of Tyre understood how intelligent Baldwin was. He was very bright for his age. And he also was the first one to discover that he may have some kind of issue going on with a disease, maybe. They didn't want to say for sure, but William of Tyre used to see a bunch of the children like pinch each other, right? This is the way they played and stuff. But Baldwin didn't really feel it, right? He's the only one that didn't really like show the pain.
Yeah, he was numb to the pain.
He was numb to the pain, but little did they know it was leprosy, right? At a very young age, he developed it.
And William picked out these symptoms early, and they told him, and a lot of people at first didn't believe him.
Yeah.
And he warned his father, Amalric. He warned, Baldwin's father about it, and then so Amalric made the decision, okay, he might have this underlying problem.
Yeah.
So we're going to have him be raised by the best teachers, best physicians, and we're going to give him the best care in every department.
Yeah, medicine and everything. And he used Arab medicine, which was, I think, later, or was it around the same time adopted in the medieval Western Europe?
Yes.
Yeah, and he used the best of what he can find to save his son from, potentially a debilitating disease. They didn't know how bad it was going to be, right? Because he's only 9 years old. He's only showing very early signs, and they didn't want to accept that it could be something like leprosy. Like he could be another leper, because there was many others at the time that had that disease. And William of Tyre, also another important thing about him was a lot of this stuff that you're going to hear is from his perspective, right? Because he was writing a lot during that time. There's a lot of people writing books and stuff like that, and William of Tyre was definitely one of them, one of the main sources of Baldwin's life. And
the interesting thing about leprosy is most people believe that it's not as contagious as people think it was. So actually 95% of people have all the necessary antibodies to go against it, and just Baldwin happened to just fall in that small 5%.
It was like a rare thing to catch.
Very rare, and like I said, they didn't really have a good understanding of it back in his time.
Yeah, and that essentially later led to his nickname, the Leper King, right? Specifically, his face and arms were at the beginning specifically infected badly, and it eventually got way worse when he went through puberty.
Yeah,
right, because it advanced, it accelerated. And while they found this out, he was about 13 years old at this time now. His father died, so now he's the new king. At 13 years old, he is crowned the new king, and he has a disease.
I mean, just imagine that, a 13-year-old king at, diseased.
Yes.
Disease-ridden, to be king and to rule over a nation that's surrounded by enemies on all sides.
Yes.
That's a tremendous amount of pressure.
All he had was Tripoli, I think, in the north, right?
Yeah, he had Tripoli in the north that was an ally.
Yeah, but everyone else around was an enemy.
Yeah, the Ayyubid ruled by Saladin, the Seljuks ruled by, Kilij Arslan II. Just tremendous powers around him.
And imagine being one of those soldiers that, you find out the king died, his son at 13 years old, and he has a disease. He's going to lead us. How's this going to turn out? We have Saladin not rampage, but expanding all over the place. We need someone willing and fitting to stop Saladin and all the enemies around us and just protect this kingdom. So at about 13 years old, they had to find a regent because Baldwin was not old enough. They needed him to be 15, right, in order to lead.
Yeah, he wasn't of age yet.
He wasn't of age. It was just 15. 15 is such a crazy age but that's what it was back then. And they found two guys, Miles of Plancy and Count Raymond III of Tripoli, who led Tripoli, right? They ultimately designated Raymond III, who's going to be very important moving forward. Like, he's a very important figure during this whole thing. They chose him to be the regent, or act as king, essentially, before Baldwin becomes old enough. So Raymond III is going to be king for about 2 years.
And just so there's no confusion, Tripoli, now the area of Tripoli is modern-day Syria and Palestine. The kingdom of Jerusalem that Baldwin was born and raised in, and that he eventually ruled over, was bordered from the western border of Saudi Arabia all the way to Gaza.
Okay.
And it stretched down into the Sinai Peninsula. So basically, the whole region of the kingdom of Jerusalem and their allies went from basically the southern end, well, actually the northern part of the Sinai Peninsula, all the way up to Syria and Palestine.
Oh, okay.
Just so there's no confusion of geography there.
Yes. And Raymond at the time, he was like the closest cousin of Baldwin's father, and he had support of nearly everybody wanted Raymond to act as regent, and therefore he was picked to rule. And during Raymond's very short reign, he fought with Saladin a couple times, but he pretty much just allowed Saladin to start expanding. And it became a problem where he was like almost encircling Jerusalem at the time by taking over Muslim principalities. He was fighting against, again, Muslim rebels and, uniting a bunch of people together.
And Saladin's smart now. What you're seeing here now during this time before Baldwin becomes of age, Saladin's very intelligent. What he's doing now, and of course, and many other conquerors before and even after him have done this. Take Egypt. You always take Egypt because Egypt is the breadbasket of your empire. When you have Egypt, you have essentially an unlimited amount of supplies because you have the Nile River, which is constantly full of fruits and all kinds of different fruits for your army, your empire, and Saladin's very intelligent with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And eventually gets to a point where Baldwin does become 15 years old. And around that certain time, they were already looking for the next king. Because Baldwin, they don't know how long Baldwin's going to live.
They don't know, yeah.
Yeah, he has leprosy, and they're trying to find his sister a husband to rule Jerusalem in case he dies, right? And this is going to be a common thing throughout the entire history of Baldwin IV, where his sister was like a key component on who is going to be next king. Her husband is going to be the next king. We have to find the right fit.
And just another interesting fact here is that when you're looking at this whole medieval period, just in general, even in Europe, even though this whole Baldwin is taking place in the Levant, when you look at even medieval Europe, you're seeing a lot of this dynastic struggle, the struggle for the monarchy, this happens a lot all across the medieval world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a huge thing during this time.
Oh, it was a big, big problem.
Yeah, and as soon as Baldwin ruled, he planned to stop Saladin, right? Whereas Raymond wasn't as stringent or like aggressive with that, Baldwin was aggressive, right? 15 years old, he's like, okay, we're stopping Saladin. We have to go after him. We can't allow him to keep expanding.
Yeah, he had broken basically they call it like an armistice, I guess, if you want to call it, that William of Tyre had with Saladin. He said, no, we're going on the offensive. We're not going to let this guy just run around and do what he wants.
Exactly. And he ordered a full-scale invasion of Egypt. That's what he wanted. So while Saladin was at Aleppo, right?
Yes.
Which is like further north, I believe.
Yes, he was fighting against the Seljuks and those guys, yeah.
Yes. Baldwin used that opportunity, as Saladin's kind of occupied, to attack Damascus on I think it's toward like eastern of the kingdom of Jerusalem. Baldwin rolled out to battle at 15 years old with a crippling disease, right? He raided one of the villages over there, or one of the valleys, which would be today's Lebanon.
Yes. And
caused Saladin to abandon his campaign in Aleppo and focus on Baldwin, right? He did not expect him to be this aggressive. So around this time, Baldwin's sister did get married to William Longsword, right?
Yes, William Longsword, yep.
William the Longsword. Baldwin was willing to give up the throne to William, but William refused, right? Because he did not have the noble support and trust yet. So this is the first time out of many where Baldwin is willing to give up the throne to other people, right? That he thinks should be fitting because he doesn't believe with his disease he'll last long and he's able to do this.
And that's very interesting because when you see that now, you're seeing and it's especially at such a young age, he has this humble character, and it's like, look at this guy. He's got this humility about him, and he's like, I don't deserve this throne, and here he goes. He still goes about his way, and it's very interesting.
He wanted the best for his kingdom, even if he wasn't it.
You can very much see his nature in this whole time period.
And what's funny about all that is he was the best fit.
He absolutely was. There was no question about it.
It's definitely the best fit, and you'll see that much later. Nobody was fitting to rule.
I mean, after he was gone, Saladin ran around and did whatever he basically pleased because there was no serious power.
There's no one there. Yeah, there's no one there to stop him until later.
Of course.
Yeah, with Richard. But about a year later from here, William got malaria. Right, so William the Longsword, Baldwin's sister's husband, got malaria and died. After impregnating Baldwin's sister, right?
Mm-hmm.
Baldwin visited William before, and he fell sick too. He got malaria. And of course, his immune system is going to be very weak, but he just didn't care. He went to go visit him regardless, showed the respect, and he fell so sick that he couldn't even lead the military anymore for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he designated Reynold of, can't say this word, Chatillon?
Yeah, it's a hard chateau.
It's a very French name.
Yeah, it's a very difficult word to pronounce.
Reynold. Is it Reynold or Reynard?
Reynold, I think.
Reynold.
I believe it's Reynold.
To lead, yeah, because I see different. I don't know if it's like the French thing, but like he designated him to lead the military, right? Not even choosing Raymond III, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Raymond III was, you would think the guy that should lead if Baldwin wasn't capable.
And what's very interesting here is now when you're seeing all these different, as Baldwin's as in charge here of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, you're seeing a lot of different figures. Now, when you look back to Amalric, when he had gotten...
Baldwin's father.
Baldwin's father, he had married with, he had tried to get with Queen of the Byzantine Empire, Maria Komnena.
Oh, okay.
So now these people, now all the way in the Byzantine Empire, they're trying to get a piece of the pie too now. And it's interesting now. He's got to pick and choose his allies and who's going to be around him, who's going to be in his inner circle. It's very interesting. You see a lot of different
it's
people.
Very important. And Baldwin thought that he was going to die, right? So he even offered to give up the throne to his cousin Philip, but Philip also declined.
Yeah,
it just shows how much trust his people had in him. Like they need, even within his situation, they needed him to lead, right? They thought that he was the right one, and he was the only one that didn't think he was, which is very interesting.
And what's also very interesting about Baldwin is when you look at his insight as a person, how he's able to make such good judgment, basically.
Yeah.
And I believe that comes from his lack of ego and his, he has a lot of humility.
Yeah.
So when you do this, your ego is not blinding your judgment. So he knows who's right and who's wrong and who's fit, even though he does make his mistake, of course, with the guy of Lusignan, of course, but he has very good judgment for the most part.
But yeah, it's like it goes to show you about those other kings we talked about, like Alexander the Great before, and a bunch of others that we will talk about later. A lot of these kings don't want to give up their power.
No, it's a very, very difficult move to make.
Yeah. Remember, Baldwin's still a teenager.
Yeah, he's a kid.
He's still a teenager. So Baldwin then wanted the Byzantine Empire to aid him with a navy attack on Egypt directly. Right? This is what he wanted. And Philip, instead of like following Baldwin, he instead left to join Raymond III in their attack on Saladin's city of Hama, which is far north. And they took a massive army with them. The amount of men that they took left very little to defend the kingdom of Jerusalem. And Baldwin feared that maybe Saladin's going to use this as an opportunity. And it did.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely did.
Definitely big time. This opened a direct path for Saladin to attack the kingdom of Jerusalem from Egypt, right? And, Baldwin was correct. He understood what Saladin was going to do, just showing further of Baldwin's intellect when it came to military.
So when you're looking at Saladin's point of view, Saladin from the very beginning of his rise to power looked at the kingdom of Jerusalem as an abomination. Because now when you look at it, Saladin, he views the kingdom of Jerusalem, which was ruled by the Christians at this time.
Yeah.
He rules it as these people need to go. They can't be here. This needs to be recovered back in Muslim hands.
Yeah.
And what he does is, it's very interesting because now his main goal throughout the whole entire war, all the way till his conflict with Richard the Lionheart, is to basically recover the kingdom of Jerusalem back to the side of Islam.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially. And Saladin, because he learned of this, that Raymond and Philip went toward the north, he came in hot while Baldwin's main forces are up there. And Saladin is attacking from the south. Saladin is now toward Gaza, right? He's getting in deeper, where he's confronted by the Knights Templar.
Yes.
The Knights Templar are essentially the most skilled knights of the Crusade.
Who are actually still around to this day.
Yes. And because of the news, Baldwin gets out of bed. He rides out, to everyone's surprise, into the city of Ascalon, which is north of Gaza. someone has to defend the king. And if it's a 16-year-old with leprosy and malaria who's bedridden, someone's got, I'll do it then. Someone's got to defend the kingdom of Jerusalem. Someone's got to defend Gaza. Someone's got to defend the city of Ascalon from stopping these guys from coming in, right? I don't have any of my guys around. I got to do this myself, I guess.
And that's the amazing part about Baldwin. When you're looking at Baldwin's history, is this guy, he's a leprosy-ridden teenager.
Yeah.
And he's actually riding into battle, into the thick of battle with his knights.
Yeah.
This shows you so much faith in his own abilities and just so much faith in his own religion, basically, to go out there and to defeat the enemy. And he's very strong at faith.
Yes. And sources say that he rode out with 375 knights before he got there, right? And Saladin, unknowingly to Baldwin at this point, Saladin had around 26,000. The numbers are disputed, but modern historians usually go with the 26,000 for Saladin. I read some numbers that are like 7,000. Some people say 9,000, 21,000. But we'll just go with the 26,000 as, what the modern historians depict. And Baldwin, because he just didn't have the men, he ordered a draft.
Yes.
All able-bodied men from Ascalon. So now he has 4,000, but most of them are not trained properly, obviously. Baldwin rises out and he comes out the gates of Ascalon, and he sees Saladin's army. He's like, oh man, these guys have some numbers on us.
Oh yeah, Saladin usually outnumbered most of the Christian forces throughout the Second Crusade, and even the Third.
Yeah, and this is the first time Baldwin came out and saw Saladin with his military. And the overwhelming numbers of Saladin's forces shocked Baldwin at the time. And Saladin, from his perspective now, we shift to his perspective. He sees Baldwin's forces. Oh, victory's right in sight. These guys got nothing for us. So essentially he sees a way to win, right? This might be the opportunity for us to claim the kingdom of Jerusalem. And Baldwin goes running. He starts retreating. Saladin left the majority of his forces at Gaza to fight with the Knights Templar. He left a smaller amount at the city of Ascalon, which is, again, a little bit north of Gaza.
Yeah.
And then Saladin, with his units, chased toward Baldwin and then routed off to these other cities and farmlands. And because of how much confidence he had, Saladin's whole forces became scattered, right? Some are going to farmlands, some are over here, some are over there. And you do see this common thing about Saladin where it's not going to be the first time. He does split up his forces constantly.
Yeah, and that ends up eventually hurting him later in the end because he spreads his army out too thin, and it eventually becomes an army and it turns into raiding parties.
Exactly.
And then you don't have a big punch in your army anymore when you do that.
Yeah. So then he routed off to the cities of Ramlah, Lydda, and Ansuf. And Baldwin used this against Saladin. Saladin did not expect 4,500 men to come back at Saladin and attack him.
And fair play here for Baldwin is that Saladin had big time underestimated Baldwin. He said, what is this teenage? Yeah, I've been in the game for a minute. This guy just jumped into the throne. There's no way he stands a chance.
Yes, exactly. And he doesn't have Raymond with him. Raymond is the veteran. He's been around for a while.
Yeah, Raymond has experience.
He's experienced. He's not there. Philip is not there. All these guys are not there. The only guy that's there is Reynold. Saladin likes this splitting forces thing, fighting different fronts almost, and even leading into raids, right? His army goes into these raiding parties. Baldwin liked the complete opposite. Baldwin liked to unite his entire military together in a big group and attack one front after the other.
Yeah, one solid fighting unit. Yeah.
Even if it's going to take longer to get through all of them, this is the much better opportunity for us to win, right? And this is what he's going to do multiple times throughout all of these battles. He does this not only once. So Baldwin, using this scattered army against Saladin, he circles back, and he also is able to get his Knights Templar to leave Gaza and join up with him to attack Saladin. So here it is again. He's not completely abandoning Gaza, but he's getting those guys out to unite his military with the Knights Templar into one big group and fight Saladin, right? Because this is much more important. If we defeat Saladin, we can drive them all out.
And what's interesting about this time period right here is what you're seeing is that you're seeing the intelligence of Baldwin as a strategist. What he does from this point specifically on throughout the war is he cuts off the supply line of Saladin, which is, of course, through Egypt.
Yeah, okay.
And this is smart because now, just as Napoleon said, an army marches on its stomach, which is very true. If an army can't eat, it can't fight. Mm-hmm. So now he goes, all right, we're going to cut their supply lines off. We're going to starve these guys out. We're going to hit them with the brunt of our brute force. defeat them. And you're seeing the very strategic side of Baldwin here.
And this leads into probably the most important battle of Baldwin's reign, the Battle of Montgazard.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about 4,500 of Baldwin's people versus 26,000 of Saladin's.
And it is said that Baldwin came in battle with the cross that Jesus was crucified on.
It's very interesting because Baldwin was very big about morale.
Of course.
Boost morale. Because remember, a lot of his guys are also draftees. These are not soldiers. These are not guys who are properly trained and experienced in war. So building their morale is so incredibly important, right? He needs to get the fire out of even his civilians.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that now, the whole morale aspect of war. So basically Baldwin realizes that he has to get the morale up of his troops.
Yeah.
Usually in a military situation, how you do that is you rile them up to anger.
Yeah.
Even Sun Tzu in The Art of War says it. You never you never go head on against an angry army whose morale is boosted. So what this is he's controlling the energy of his army.
Yeah.
He's very intelligent with this, and it works very well.
Absolutely. And Saladin, at this point, before Baldwin goes in for that attack, Saladin's baggage train was mired, and he was actually looking to siege a castle, right? So he wanted to siege a castle. He needed the equipment and all that stuff. He was waiting for the baggage train. And then, out of nowhere, Baldwin attacks them. They were completely caught off guard. Baldwin did, like you said before, Baldwin raised the cross, right? He raised the true cross, which is what they thought was the cross that Jesus was crucified on.
Yes.
And he got down on his knees to pray to it, which boosted the morale. They all attacked Saladin. And at 16, remember, he's still 16 years old, right? He's still very, very young.
Only 16, and he's leading a whole entire army.
And with 4,500 men against the 26,000 of Saladin's, he annihilated them. Oh, bad.
Yeah, Saladin was beaten bad.
Also, such a bad defeat where he was outnumbering Baldwin's forces. He had better equipment. He had more experience on his side. Baldwin literally just blitzed right through the center of his military. Because again, they are scattered. They did not see this coming at all. They did not think Baldwin would come back.
When they had charged Saladin's army was the heavy infantry during the medieval times that the Europeans used, heavy lancers and heavy knights. They were extremely effective because they served as a shock trooper. Basically, when they stormed, and if nothing was done to outflank them, they broke through any line. I mean, the medieval knights of Europe during this time, they're heavy cavalry. I'm sorry, I might have said heavy infantry, but heavy cavalry. It served as a shock troop. It broke right through any line if nothing was done about it, of course.
Oh, it completely annihilated Saladin's units, and they chased Saladin's forces for 12 miles. Chased them on horseback for 12 miles.
Saladin almost lost his life, and he fled away on a racing camel.
Yeah, on a camel, and he fled about 25 miles away from the location.
And just another aspect of war here, camels are very, very effective in war because they're a lot more versatile than a horse. A horse does not turn and twist the corners as easily as a camel does. So camels are very effective.
Oh, yeah, and I actually didn't know much about the camel thing, so they can angle off and stuff better than the horses can.
Yeah, and camels don't need to be fed as much as horses do.
Oh, really?
Because they store water.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So, camels are very effective.
Yeah, so Saladin left on a camel 25 miles away, and they say almost his entire military was killed in that battle, right? Some sources say that 10% was still alive. The vast majority were killed in that battle, and the victory was so big for Baldwin that the Christians at the time believed it was a real miracle. There's no way that should have happened. There's no way he could have defeated Saladin like that.
Oh, it was a huge victory, huge.
And on the other side, the Muslim historians said that the loss that Saladin suffered there was so bad to his reputation. It hit him so hard that he was not able to redeem himself until the Battle of Hattin after Baldwin died, way later down the road in 1188, I believe, right?
Yeah, 1187, 88.
Yeah, that's where he finally redeemed his reputation.
The interesting thing about this battle, now that you mentioned that, how it hurt his rep.
Yeah.
As he goes now to Egypt, what he does on his way after that loss, on his way to Egypt, he sends messengers and even carrier pigeons to all around his Egypt, basically all around Egypt.
Yeah.
Telling people that, because remember now, when a king is defeated this badly, that hurts his reputation, and this can spark revolts. And very easily, and many times throughout history, you see that happen.
That's a very point.
So what happens here is he sends all these carrier pigeons and even messengers to Egypt telling them, don't worry, guys, you better not act up because I'm still alive.
Yeah, exactly.
So he comes back to Egypt, and the interesting thing about this point now is he builds an army by force now. Well, what do I mean by force? He raises the prices of all the people's food and everything that they have to basically live off of. Now, this is a stupid move right here. because we all know that war is an extension of economy. Basically, if you don't have the right money, the right supplies,
the resources,
you can't build a powerful army. And if you take from your people, basically, you're going to exhaust your country and your empire. And this is not a smart move on Saladin's part.
Yeah, definitely comes to bite him. He does win some skirmishes though against Baldwin.
Sure, yeah.
So around, a little bit after that, Baldwin starts rounding up sheep. Saladin sends his nephew in order to investigate, and he happened to run into Baldwin. So the nephew runs into Baldwin and gets into this like a small little skirmish with him. Baldwin was defeated here. A 62-year-old veteran saved Baldwin's life by giving up his own, fighting that small force and allowed Baldwin to escape. Baldwin then came weeks later. I don't know if it's an act of revenge or just to stop these raids, because that small force became like raiding parties, and he needed to stop that from happening. So he chased down the enemy near Jacob's Fort and won a skirmish, but rested. Right, so he fends off a bunch of these raiders. Him and his men are just resting at this point. They don't think anything's going to happen, or should I say, maybe the Knights Templar that were with him did not think anything was going to happen. And then Baldwin was countered by Saladin at the Battle of Marj Ayun.
Yeah, this is where the war turns around for Baldwin.
Yeah, Baldwin and Raymond lost his battle, right?
Yes.
They lose his battle. Baldwin nearly died, and he was knocked off of his horse. And remember, he has his disease. If he's knocked off a horse, he's on the ground, and he's open for any soldier to get at him. One of his knights instead grabbed Baldwin, put him on his back, and fought through Saladin's forces forcefully, went right through them, and saved Baldwin IV. So imagine like this guy just running through your military with a king on his back.
This is one of those heroic acts right here that you're seeing. This is like, you almost think like, how is this even a possibility?
I wanted to know who this knight was. I could not find a name to him.
Yeah, they don't credit a name. Yeah,
that's so crazy. And he's the one that saved Baldwin. I mean, that's such a crazy story.
Baldwin wasn't even able to get back on his horse after. That's how wounded he was.
This guy had to grab him and hold him while fighting off the military, the enemy soldiers. And the loss, though, was blamed on the Knights Templar.
Yes.
I don't know if this is true. I think they were just kind of saying this. I think that, if I'm not wrong, I think this was on William of Tyre's account, as they underestimated the enemy and didn't think that they could come counter them and stuff like that, so they weren't strategically ready for it. And they said it wasn't Baldwin's fault, because Baldwin did not have direct command of the Knights Templar.
Yes, that is correct. And the thing about that is William could have also been. It's like you had just mentioned earlier. It's unclear, but it's also been done because to defend the reputation. So there could have been a political play here too.
It could have been Baldwin's fault, right? But they don't. For the people, they don't want to say that.
Yeah, of course. They can't. For the people, they can't say that.
Right? They can't say Baldwin lost because he was incompetent in battle. Right? That's crazy.
That would destroy his reputation.
Yeah, but that could have been the reason. A little bit after that, Baldwin's men were building a castle toward, I think this is the north part, right? Jacob's Fort.
Yes, it's further. Yes, it's further north. Yep.
Is it next to Syria?
It's in the Jordan River, by the Jordan. But by the Jordan.
By the Jordan River. Okay. This location is very important because for both parties, they were very interested in this location. If the castle was completed, Saladin knew that his invasion from the north would be very difficult.
Yeah.
And he ran into issues as well during this time, again, fighting off Muslim rebellions, right? It was actually so bad at this point that he couldn't even get a full army to attack that castle, to besiege it, because he was just fighting different fronts at this point. He needed, his units were scattered, and this time not to his interest, right? He didn't want that to happen. So instead of going to conflict with Baldwin, he actually tried to bribe him. He tried to pay him to stop the construction of the castle.
Yeah, he actually, and the exact amount was 160,000 dinars.
Yeah, total.
Which Baldwin ended up denying.
Of course. I mean, the guy's rich. He's the king of Jerusalem. He has England behind him, the king of Franks behind him. He doesn't need money from Saladin.
Yeah, just so everybody knows that the kingdom of Jerusalem during this specific time with Baldwin was actually very rich.
Yeah, he was incredibly wealthy.
They had money.
It leads me to think, like, why would Saladin even try to bribe him at that point?
He was a desperate act. Yeah,
he didn't want to go to. But do what's funny though, he did go to battle and siege that castle. And he won.
Yes, he did. Yep.
So I think he was a little bit more like panicked than he should have been.
Yeah, he was a lot more overcautious. Yeah.
So before he does that, Saladin's thinking now, okay, he's not taking my bribe. He's not taking my money. What do I do? Right? I cannot let him build that castle. I need to stop him from building that castle. So he just blitzed it. Like he wanted to get to that castle before Baldwin could even react. Right? And Baldwin wasn't even there. Baldwin was not at the castle. So he goes and sieges the castle. He starts shooting arrows to distract the enemy so his miners can build tunnels on the walls. Is it in the wall or under the wall?
It's under the wall. What they do usually, it's called building a moat.
Yeah.
So they build underneath the wall.
Yeah, and they sapped it.
Yes.
So they put wood and then lit it on fire. The fires, after a couple failed attempts, the flames collapsed the walls of the castle, and they just destroyed the entire castle and killed nearly everybody inside. And to remind you, this is about 1,500 of Baldwin's forces inside the castle versus 300 of Saladin's forces that were sieging it. So it was a very big victory for Saladin, not only because of the sheer numbers, but because of the location, because he destroyed a castle that was being built. And Baldwin got word of this, right? Baldwin heard about the 6-day siege, right? It took Saladin 6 days to crush it.
Which is actually extremely very fast for a siege. I mean, there's normally throughout history, sieges have lasted months, and some at times even over a year.
Yeah, huge victory for Saladin. And so Baldwin got attention of it, and Saladin started losing men because of a plague.
Yeah.
So the dead bodies were, it was during the summer, I think. It was intense heat at the time, and the bodies of Baldwin's forces were heating up so badly that the decayed corpses were causing a plague, and some of Saladin's men were dying, so he had to leave. And during this time, Baldwin started to get into like political issues.
And the interesting thing about that is during this plague, Saladin lost about 10 emirs, which is basically a high-ranking official within the military.
Yeah, they're like seniors, right?
That's a big blow. If you lose about 10 of those guys, that's a big hit.
Yeah, not just some like soldier that was.
Oh no, these guys have pull in the military for sure.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there wasn't a battle right after that. I think he got into like political issues with Baldwin and with his family.
Yes.
So Baldwin started getting into like political issues with his family. Nothing new for him, including his sister again, right? Who should she marry now? Because William the Longsword died. She needs to marry someone else, and she also is having a child.
Yes.
With William the Longsword.
And another interesting thing about that, as she's having that child, one thing to keep in mind here is that no matter who marries her, that person or that person's son to be, if it happens, of course, will not take the throne. So that person has to. There's a dilemma there for whoever's going to marry, Baldwin's sister.
Yeah, and again, it's very important for Baldwin's reign, to determine who the next king is going to be. And he needs to see a lot of these different politicians during the time. And because it's so hectic, he wanted to create a truce with Saladin.
Yes.
So he's like, okay, man, I got problems I'm dealing with. Let's make a truce, right? We'll not fight each other. And Saladin was happy about that.
Oh, Saladin wanted that.
Oh, he was like, oh, thank you. I can go campaign into Syria again, and I can stop these rebellions, because that's an issue for me, right? You got your issues, I got my issues. Truce. We'll do our own things here.
Another interesting point here, another reason why that Baldwin called for a truce with Saladin was because also, remember, Baldwin's condition is getting much worse now. Yeah. Baldwin is suffering a lot more from leprosy now, so now he can't afford to keep that same energy that he had anymore. Now he's hurting.
Yeah. Yep. And Baldwin also, he had an 8-year-old half-sister, and he married her off to like this 14-year-old teenager of Toron, I think.
Yes, I believe.
Toron. Yeah. He sent her away, and he actually did this not only for political reasons. Of course, he did that, but he also sending her away because there was conspirators, and he feared for her safety. So he sensed danger within his kingdom and sent his half-sister away as well. And during this truce, Baldwin was focused on family problems, especially on his mother's side, and Saladin was focused on the campaign.
And another interesting part here now is, and it catches Baldwin's attention too, is now, and Saladin catches this before Baldwin does, of course, is the rise of the Seljuk Sultanate.
Who are the Seljuks?
The Seljuks are the people that eventually become the Ottoman Empire.
Oh.
They eventually go
like Turkey.
Yeah, modern-day Turkey, and they become the Ottoman Empire. Yeah. That's who they eventually become. Oh. So now there's a ruler in the Zangid dynasty, which is basically modern-day Iraq and places like that.
Okay.
Kilij Arslan II is his name. Now, he sees that Saladin sees that Kilij is building up very, very quickly. Baldwin notices it too. So now Baldwin, like I said, so young, have all of these problems, and to have multi-vision, basically, to have this very vast array of problems. Yeah, he's got to multitask in so many different political, family, marriage, economy, just everything.
Yeah, it's crazy to have that much stress and that much on your plate with his situation.
And even his health. It's just all these things going down at once.
Yeah, and he's thinking he's probably going to die soon. Like, how much, not only is he having to deal with this problem, does he have the confidence the next guy will have, the ability to deal with this?
Yeah, even at the end of the 1170s, around 1179, Baldwin basically realized, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it much longer.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of time left.
Yeah, and during this time, Baldwin even exiled Raymond III.
Yeah.
Right? One of his top guys, the leader of Tripoli. He exiles Raymond III because Raymond was going to create a coup. And some would say that he was doing it because of Baldwin's mother's influence and stuff like that, but there's a lot of political stuff going on at the time. And Reynold actually destroyed a Muslim merchant caravan, which broke the truce between Saladin and Baldwin.
Yes. Yep.
Baldwin was so disappointed in this, right? He even told Reynold, he's like, go make restitution with Saladin. Fix this, We're not trying to go to war or battles right now. And Reynold refused. So it's like, dude, this guy's dealing with so many problems. Like, now these guys aren't even listening to him. And of course, Baldwin is usually correct with his decisions. He's usually, even at his young age, he's so much smarter than everybody around him.
Yeah, he's got very good judgment.
Yeah. And it seemed like Baldwin's nobles and military is like falling apart at the top. That's what it seems like around him at that point. And then Saladin attacked. Baldwin meets him at the Battle of Leper King. I think is how you pronounce it.
Yes.
Huge forces on both sides. This is probably the biggest battle in terms of numbers.
Yeah, Saladin musters a huge army.
Yes. So they said the numbers is like Baldwin had 15,000, Saladin had about 20,000.
And just so everybody realizes that in the medieval times, these are considered enormous armies. Because the medieval armies were not big because of all the different splittings of kingdoms. So yeah, you had a money issue there too.
Yes.
So these are actually in these times considered very, very big numbers, just so nobody gets confused.
Like in modern history, this seems like nothing, right? Because you'll send out 300,000 people to go fight.
Even in antiquity, like ancient times, like they fielded 50, 60,000 guys, like with Hannibal and Alexander. So this times, these are very big numbers. 20,000 is big for the medieval days. And Baldwin's formation was extremely defensive, very heavy defense. And Saladin tried to break through their defense by just scattering arrows, just volleying them with arrows, and then feigned retreats, trying to retreat, get them into a trap, right, make them follow. Lure them in, yeah.
Yep, exactly. And Baldwin never fell for it. This proved unsuccessful for Saladin, and the battle began to become so tedious for Saladin, he just left. Well, barely anybody died in this battle, even though it was the largest battle by numbers. Almost nobody died.
Yeah, he saw that he wasn't landing any shots, basically, and he said, I'm out of here.
Yeah, this is worthless. He just retreats. And he leaves because another thing that was happening on another part of the Kingdom of Jerusalem was a small unit of Saladin was attacking a cave castle, which was left defenseless. Again, Baldwin is always like bringing all his forces together, right? He's not usually fighting on two different fronts. He's not, trying to defend that cave castle. He wants all his guys on Saladin. Right, he's only focusing on the top most important thing at one at a time. And because of that, it left that cave castle defenseless. Well, what would be today's Jordan. That's like essentially where the location is. And then Saladin soon attempted another strategy. He split his forces to siege Beirut. I don't know exactly where that's at, actually.
Beirut's in Lebanon.
Lebanon. Okay. Today's Lebanon. And had another army invade the south of Jerusalem. So Baldwin knew that Saladin was trying to split his forces as well. This is, again, something Saladin keeps doing. He keeps trying to split his forces one after another, different spots, and it seems like he's confident in this engagement and knows that his enemy's probably not going to beat him in this kind of fight if they do the same thing against him, right? And Baldwin ignores the smaller south attack. He focuses on Saladin. He does the same thing again. He gets all of his units together, focuses all his men on Beirut against Saladin, since it's much more important, and he defeated Saladin again.
Yes, yep.
And then Saladin returns to his campaign in the north, right? He's like, okay, enough with Baldwin. I got to handle these other guys. I've been paying too much attention to Baldwin. And Baldwin used that opportunity to take land from Saladin at Damascene, Basra, and taking back that cave castle from before.
So it's interesting, too, now, like we just mentioned, Baldwin has a lot on his plate, but so does Saladin. Now he's got to watch out for Baldwin, the Seljuk Turks, Egypt, building his navy. He's got a lot of different things going on.
Things to handle, too. Yep, both guys are just very difficult with what they were handling.
Yeah, they're just all over the place.
Yeah. And, look what happened. Baldwin took back some of his land, just going one after the other with a big group. That's just essentially what he liked to do. And when he went to attack Damascus, he threatened to destroy a mosque over there. This is very interesting about Baldwin's character. He wanted to destroy a mosque that was there, but the local Christians that lived there convinced him to not do it because they feared a retaliation on the churches from Saladin if he did it. And Baldwin listened to them. He's like, okay. I think another reason why he did this was not only his hostility and his hospitality and his generosity, but it also could have been because they knew that he wasn't going to last that long. Like, what happens after Baldwin dies and Saladin starts destroying churches now and going after the religion of Christianity?
The interesting thing about the Kingdom of Jerusalem during this time under Baldwin's rule is that there was actually a lot of people may not know this, but there was a lot of religious tolerance.
Yes.
Jews, Muslims, and even Christians all were able to worship at temples, mosques, and churches in their own respective right.
Yeah.
Under the rule of the Franks, that is.
Yep. In the Kingdom of Jerusalem, right?
Yes.
Which will be shown later when Saladin eventually wins the Kingdom of Jerusalem. But Baldwin used that. He didn't want to destroy the church or the mosque after that. It was like a sort of protection at the time. And you do see under both Baldwin and Saladin's rules that they were a lot more generous when it came to the enemy's religion. Or I don't want to say enemy's religion, but like the civilians at the time.
Yeah.
So Baldwin allowed the mosques to stay up, and Saladin later did the same with the churches. So it was kind of like they saw the respect from each other in a sense. Right? Saladin saw, okay, he didn't destroy the mosque, so I'll give him that level of respect as well.
Yeah, Saladin was according to sources, he was very driven by his faith in his whole campaign. So that's what they say a lot of his drive came from.
And it's why today a lot of Muslims do hold even Baldwin to high regard, and a lot of Christians hold Saladin to high regard as well, because just what they were able to do back in those days, which was, you didn't see that too much, right? There was a lot of religious wars.
Both were driven by faith. Yeah.
They were both driven by faith, but they were able to have a level of respect.
Oh, of course.
For each other's.
Yeah, of course.
And at this time, Baldwin started losing feeling in his legs, right? His legs and hands. His leprosy was just destroying him. And he could not walk without help. He couldn't blink. So his cornea dried up and he lost his sight, right? He became blind, which I didn't even think that could happen.
He didn't, and this is when he realized this is the end of the road for him.
Yeah, and then he got a severe fever. It had Baldwin bedridden, and he appointed his new sister's husband, Guy. Okay, this guy, I don't like this guy, right?
Yeah, Guy of Lusignan.
Yeah, Guy. Yes. He appointed him as the new regent and successor of the Kingdom of Jerusalem because he is his sister's husband. This is why it's so important. And Guy, you'll see later, was not the right fit.
It's always the people that they want to hand all the riches to that always end up ruining it.
Always. And the nobles at this time, because Baldwin is bedridden, he's so sick, they all think he's going to die. He thinks he's going to die. The nobles start scheming already, just like they always do. And didn't want to support Guy, but Baldwin surprisingly recovered and offered Guy Jerusalem for Tyre. So he wanted to trade the Kingdom of Jerusalem for Tyre.
Which is a huge trade-off in Guy's favor.
Yeah.
Assuming, of course, he knows how to rule it.
And dude, it's funny, Guy refused, which confused and even angered Baldwin. He's like, why would you not want to do that?
It makes a person question, what's your intent and what's your goal?
Yeah, and also are you okay in the head? You should be the leader of Jerusalem. I'm not gonna last that long, man. You got to take this place. I'll take Tyre, right? And that's it.
Yeah, he basically tells him, my days are numbered.
Yeah.
You're in perfect health. You're a gallant knight. You got all these accolades left for you.
And it's not like before when he offered Jerusalem to William and Philip. He knows he's going to die soon.
Oh, he knows it.
He knows it.
Yeah, he knows it.
And he needs someone to take over. So it's good for Guy to have also some experience as a leader. But Guy didn't want to do so. And this is not the first time where he refuses these offers from Baldwin, which are very generous.
And just on a side note here to mention that when you look at this specific encounter that Guy and Baldwin are having, this shows you a lot about Guy's nature. Yeah. Baldwin's being very authentic here. He's telling him, look, I'll give you this, give me Tyre. You get the big piece of the pie, just give me Tyre.
Exactly.
Guy's turning this down. Now, whenever you see a situation like this, you sense a very, very evil nature within a person.
Yeah.
Especially when the person that's offering you this big deal is being very authentic. He's not backstabbing you. He's not sideswiping you in any kind of way. So you're seeing the very, very bad side of Guy right here.
Exactly. And then this leads to some of the sieges from Saladin. Now, Saladin gets his attention back on Baldwin, after dealing with some of the stuff in the north. During Baldwin's half-sister's wedding that we talked about before, that 8-year-old half-sister, she has her wedding in Curragh.
Yeah.
Right? In Curragh Castle.
Curragh Castle, yep.
Saladin attacked the castle with 8 catapults, and he intended to take both the half-sister and her husband hostage. It's going to be a huge thing.
And the fact that you mentioned catapults, they used trebuchets. It was a very, very big catapult that launched flaming rocks and things like that.
Yeah, it was very powerful.
Yeah.
With how they flung them.
Yeah.
And Saladin then was given a letter by the groom's mother. And Saladin, because of the letter, specifically told his men not to aim at the tower where the wedding is at, where wedding is happening at. Right. Very interesting how that happened. Maybe he was being respectful as they were just children getting married. Maybe because, they're royal. Maybe because he doesn't want to hurt the expensive hostages. Who knows what it is. But Saladin has shown to have a level of respect for the enemy many times. So it could be because, he doesn't want to, kill whoever's inside there. Anyone who's like innocent in a sense. And, it's a very weird time.
Yeah.
Extremely weird time. Upon hearing the news, though, Baldwin revoked Guy's regency and he took back full authority. All right. He hears that his half-sister's getting attacked. This ain't good. She's only a little kid. And Guy's not he's not happy with Guy already. He launched a full defense to defend his sister and his new family. As Baldwin left, the royal council was influenced by Baldwin's mother to appoint Baldwin's 5-year-old nephew as co-king. Very slimy move.
Right? Oh, very, very, yeah.
He had no idea that happened.
Very sly, yeah.
Yes. And Baldwin was all about morale, right? He had the Tower of David lit, right? So the Tower of David is, what do they call those? It's like a signal to...
An obelisk?
I think. I forgot exactly what it's called, but it was like used as a signal that he was like coming, or, a big defense was going to come and aid the kingdom.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. I forget what they call that.
Yeah. And he made sure that he was going to be present at the battle, even though he was blind and immobile. He couldn't move. He couldn't see, right? He couldn't lead the military anymore.
Yeah, completely incapable.
Completely incapable, but he needed to be there for morale and, in the sight of the enemy as well.
And that's also another important thing here to mention, that the morale. So the psychological aspect of it. You see this guy who's completely incapable. He basically might as well be dead.
Yeah.
And here he is, right with his guys.
Right with his guys.
And that shows that when a leader is there for their men, it's like the men just have this huge surge of energy. Like, this is our leader. This is what a leader should be.
Yes, which is very different today.
You definitely don't see that.
You don't see that anymore. And crazy enough, Saladin, he heard Baldwin was coming and he left. That's crazy. He heard, okay, Baldwin's coming. Let's get out of here, guys. Right? And this has happened not only once, multiple times on the same castle. He sieged his castle multiple times, and this kept happening. So after ensuring the safety of his family at Curragh, he then heard about his nephew being appointed king, right? His own nephew that his mom had influence on to become co-king, which is crazy. He was concerned by this, but he went with it either way. I mean, he's not in a position, health-wise to like fight with this anymore. So he's like, okay, he could be king. It makes sense. He's my family, he's young. He's my sister's son. We'll go with it. Fine. And he did not think Guy, though, was fit to be king at all. Right? He did not want Guy to be king. Baldwin tried to get Guy's marriage annulled from his sister, just to get away that possibility of him becoming king. He knew that Guy could not command anybody. He had no one's trust, no one's respect, and he was unreliable.
And this is where you're seeing now, like we mentioned before, you're seeing Baldwin has good judgment. Well, you're seeing now the flaw, the mistakes he made in his own judgment.
Yeah.
Now, Guy had this persona of, I was a knight, I'm an honorable man, come from an honorable house. So Baldwin figured, okay, bring this guy in. Now he makes the mistake because he brought in basically a snake.
Yeah, pretty much. And he didn't know. He thought this guy was an honorable guy who could lead and all this stuff, but it turned out not to be true. Not everybody with a certain status is fit to be a king or a leader.
Yeah, you have to look deeper.
Yeah, and to test him even further, Baldwin even told Guy to accompany him as a vassal to meetings, and Guy kept refusing. This happened multiple times. He kept telling Guy, yo, come with me, be one of my vassals, and, come to these meetings and stuff, and he kept refusing.
Yeah, and you're seeing that, and that's when you see the nature of Guy right there. It's like, this guy is just a snake.
And I'm the king. You should be listening to what I'm saying, essentially.
And he's very, Baldwin's very young, and he's disease-ridden. Yeah. He has a very authentic nature is what it seems.
And he's shown his past and history has always shown he has good judgment.
Yes, of course.
He always makes good decisions. Why is Guy not listening, And it turned out that Guy was upset at Baldwin and didn't show him or didn't allow him into the city of Ascalon, right? So Baldwin actually came to the gates of Ascalon, that city before that's right north of Gaza, and he tried to get inside. He even knocked on the gates himself with his own hand. This guy could barely move. He did it himself, and Guy did not let him inside.
Wow, right.
The gates were shut on the king. That is crazy. And it also showed further that Guy was definitely not fit to be king.
Oh, definitely, no way.
Absolutely not. He got way too emotional. He got way too upset. And Baldwin then appointed a new governor, which took away half of Guy's territory. Baldwin wanted Guy to have no more power and instead give it to someone who had more ability to rule.
And this is the interesting thing. I have a little saying of my own. Yeah. Leaders are born, they're not made.
Exactly.
And when you look at Guy, you can't train somebody like that to be a leader. He just doesn't have it. No. Baldwin was born a leader. Guy was not.
Exactly. That is a great example with them two because they're both young.
So they're both young, both have similar experiences. For example, battles, stuff like that. Yeah. Guy just does not. To be a leader, and again, I'll say it again, leaders are born, they are not made.
Yeah. And then Saladin then sieged that same castle again at Karak, where the half-sister is at. And Baldwin quickly, just like before, rode out there, and Saladin retreated upon hearing that Baldwin was coming. This happened again, exactly the same way. Baldwin then developed a severe fever, and he knew he would not survive this one. Right? He survived a few diseases and sicknesses before. This one, he was sure he was not going to live anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he appointed the new king will be his nephew, Baldwin V.
Yes.
Right. So that his nephew will now be the king. Until he is aged to lead, though, Raymond III will be regent, since no one else is fit. He actually does not trust Raymond, right? Because that is that former coup thing, and he exiled him before. But he saw that Raymond, even as much as I don't trust this guy, no one's better than him.
What other choice do I have?
What choice do I have? No one else is willing. No one can be king. Like, this is an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, even considering the bad blood they had.
Yeah, exactly. And he had to give the guy that was most qualified.
And then that was first place runner-up.
Yep. It was horrible at the time, Very unfortunate for Baldwin. Such a great leader had to devolve the kingdom to guys like this.
And it's almost like pick your poison.
Yeah.
How, the one that kills you instantly or the one that kills you slowly. Yep. And Raymond was the one that kills you slowly.
Yep. And he went with it. He had to choose somebody.
He had to pick somebody.
Hopefully his nephew can grow to become a great king and take whatever. If Raymond does not destroy the kingdom, hopefully his nephew can take over and fix everything. Right? That's essentially probably what was going through his head. I just hope my nephew can make it and he can take over.
Just imagine the joy in Saladin's mind knowing that Baldwin is in his last days.
He must have been like so excited about it. I mean, obviously, it's like bittersweet with a rival like that, but he wants Baldwin out of the picture.
Yeah, and again, just like I had mentioned before, Saladin's whole war was basically to destroy what he believed was the abomination, the kingdom of Jerusalem that was ruled by the Christian Franks at that time.
Yeah, and Baldwin died. He was buried next to his father.
At 1185, yeah.
1185, 24 years old. Isn't that crazy? All this stuff happened. He died at 24.
I just imagine that. Just everything happening so quick and
so quickly, man. And sadly, his nephew died a year later.
Yeah.
Baldwin V died a year later. Now who becomes king? It has to be Raymond now.
Who takes the throne?
Right? Raymond's the regent. Right? He has to be the guy. And that's, if Baldwin knew that his nephew was going to die, he probably would want Raymond to take the crown. And Baldwin's sister made her husband the new king. So crazy how this happens. Guy knows about Raymond's regency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does his sister. And another, I believe it was another night, he told Raymond to go away and take the body of the king and bring it to Jerusalem. He goes, and during that time, Baldwin's sister claims the new leader of the kingdom of Jerusalem, And because her husband's Guy, it never got annulled like Baldwin wanted. Why Baldwin wanted their marriage to end. He became king. So the guy that Baldwin wanted the least to become king became king.
That's the guy that, yeah.
Baldwin's nightmare became a reality. Well, he's dead, but his nightmare became a reality for everybody else.
Yes, not what he wanted for the future of his kingdom.
And then Guy, knowing about Raymond's regency, he declared Raymond a traitor to the kingdom of Jerusalem. But he still has Tripoli, right?
Of course.
So it's Tripoli, so it's not too bad.
But what that does is it creates friction.
Friction between two. I mean, that's like his only ally.
It could create a completely unnecessary war.
Isn't that crazy that Tripoli is like his ally, right?
Yes.
And he just makes an enemy out of them.
Yeah.
Guy does. Raymond resides in Galilee, and Guy invades him. Guy actually attacks Raymond. Raymond had no more resources, so he asks Saladin to help him. He asked Saladin. So there's that one quote in the Kingdom of Heaven, which wasn't real, but it said that Saladin told, I forgot who he told, but he says that a great enemy is closer than a fake friend.
Yeah, yes.
It's not a real quote, but this is exactly what this was.
But there is truth to it.
It's truth to this, and this is it's a real example of that quote. Even if it wasn't really said, this example was real. Saladin trusted Raymond more than anybody else at this point.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Of the enemies, right? Because he's dealt with Raymond before. He's fought Raymond so long, right? He has a level of respect and trust in Raymond.
So it's basically the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly.
It's one of those things.
Yeah, it's one of those. Great saying. Yeah, great quote there. And Saladin accepts the alliance essentially, or to help at least Raymond. And he just sent some units to Guy and just gets him scurrying away. And it just shows to Saladin, oh, this guy is nothing. I mean, he's fought Guy before.
Sure.
But if Guy's leading, he's the king, oh, this is going to be easy.
It's going to be easy work.
This is going to be easy work. He's not any Baldwin. He's not a Raymond.
No.
And, these guys fought before, of course. And during this whole time, Saladin actually intended to make Raymond the king of all Franks. That's what he wanted. He wanted to not only help Raymond, but to make him the king of all Franks.
That's a very big statement.
That's a huge statement, right? That's how much respect he had for Raymond. Because Raymond's been fighting, I think, Baldwin even before Baldwin was king.
Yes.
I believe so. In response, Raymond allowed Saladin to cross into his territory whenever he wants. If you want to cross to my territory, get right into the King of Jerusalem, do so, right? And Saladin definitely used that benefit. Saladin attacked full scale, most likely knew of Guy's poor reputation. Guy was advised to hurry and reconcile with Raymond, right? Saladin's coming in heavy with a huge unit, and the nobles at the time, the consul, told Guy, you need Raymond. Like, we can't do this without Raymond. Isn't that crazy? How horrible of a leader Guy was.
Yeah, just completely incompetent.
Completely incompetent. And now he needs to get back with him. And Raymond didn't care.
Yeah, you can't burn down an old bridge and then, hey, let's rebuild it again. It doesn't work like
exactly. And Saladin just tore right through with that first raid. He absolutely destroyed part of the Crusaders at the time.
And again, Saladin's army is a very fearsome army throughout the whole, even since his fight with Baldwin all the way till now, he has a very fearsome army.
Yep, and the loss was so bad that the news even shocked Raymond, right? Raymond accepted to meet with Guy. He doesn't like Guy, but he doesn't want to see the kingdom of Jerusalem fall like that.
Yeah, he can. It would be a disaster.
He still holds that level of like those ties with the kingdom of Jerusalem, fighting with Baldwin IV.
Yeah, there's that personal tie he has with it, yeah.
Yeah, and he knows, like, if that falls, what's going to happen to me? I know he's going to make me king of all the Franks and stuff, but, it's a different thing for Raymond at this point than just becoming rich and, having all this power and status and stuff like that. So he accepted to meet with Guy, and he actually expelled one of the Muslim garrisons on his land, right? So not only were they crossing through his land, but they were also building garrisons, and he expelled one of those. Guy and Raymond met and they reconciled. Saladin then destroyed Guy at the Battle of Hattin.
Yeah, Battle of Hattin's a very, very, very famous battle.
And because of that victory, Guy was captured. He was later released, but it redeemed Saladin from that loss at the Battle of Montgazard.
Yeah.
It was such a big victory for Saladin, and there was nothing left for the Kingdom of Jerusalem at that point. Guy's the king. He was captured. Saladin takes over the kingdom of Jerusalem, redeems his honor from the losses to Baldwin IV. Saladin respected Baldwin to a very high degree, right? He still did. He ruled without persecution of tearing down the churches and stuff like that. He didn't do any of that stuff. And that's essentially what ended the reign of Baldwin IV. And Saladin, before, the whole thing with Richard the Lionheart started to come in and all that stuff. But he takes over the kingdom of Jerusalem, right?
And this is the interesting thing about Saladin. Now, during this whole basically little squabble with Guy and Raymond and all these basically indecisions that nobody can figure out. Yeah, Saladin's, like I said, he's an amazing general. He sees the situation here. He understands that Guy and Raymond, he understands the tension there, the friction. Yeah. And he perfectly executes his plan. Even at the Battle of Haddon, it's just he perfectly executes all his plans. And this is why he's one of the most amazing generals in history.
Yeah, for sure. And his quarrels were not over, though. His battles were not over.
Oh, yeah. He had another big problem in about 10 years' time.
Richard the Lionheart of England comes into the picture. And that didn't go well for Saladin. But, yeah, that's essentially like the end of that. There was one quote. I didn't find many quotes. Some of them were pretty cool. So the beginning one about Baldwin's quote, to be deprived of the use of one's limbs is of little help to one in carrying out the work of government. It is not fitting with a hand that weak as mine should hold power when fear of Arab aggression daily presses upon the holy city, and when my sickness increases the enemy's daring.
And that's a very, very interesting, very well in-depth thought-out quote from Baldwin. It's there's another quote here I have from Hannibal Barca that relates to what was going on here.
Okay.
Between Raymond and Guy.
Yeah.
Whenever you're in a situation, for example, this could be related to any kind of situation, historical or not, or even modern. If you're in a situation where you can't trust people or whoever it is around you, close or not, Hannibal had a saying, backstabbing in lean times, backslapping in fat times, meaning if people get along with me when things are well, then when things go bad, people leave me and betray me. So it's very interesting to pay attention to those around you at all times.
And there was another quote by some old man who was talking to one of the Crusaders. This is after Baldwin's death and everything. He told that Crusader, I have seen a time when King Baldwin of Jerusalem, the one who was a leper, beat Saladin, although he only had 300 armed men against Saladin's 3,000. But now your sins have come to such a pass that we round you up in the fields like cattle. Pretty much saying, you guys have nothing without Baldwin.
Yeah.
Baldwin was a different beast. He was a very different opponent to deal with.
Oh yeah, without Baldwin, he put it perfectly. Without Baldwin, you guys are nothing.
You just cat, to us. And so that was pretty much it for. We do have some questions on Patreon. If you guys want to ask any questions, you guys can ask them on Patreon every single week. We'll look at those. First one by Logan. He says, not really a question, but I'd love to see an episode on Marcus Aurelius and Pyrrhus of Epirus.
Pyrrhus of Epirus.
Yeah. Marcus Aurelius, huh?
Marcus Aurelius he was one of the five good emperors. And he ruled in. He has a very, very famous book that most actually billionaires and millionaires read called Meditations. I've read a little bit of it. It actually is a very, very well thought out book. He was a philosopher. He ruled during a very good time in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very interesting.
And Pyrrhus of Epirus.
Yeah, Pyrrhus of Epirus.
Him I don't know much about.
Pyrrho, depending on who's saying it. But yeah, Pyrrhus of Epirus. He was in between Alexander and Hannibal, and he fought against the Romans, and he was from Epirus, which is southern-day Albania today.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Or modern-day Albania.
Modern-day Albania.
Yeah.
And then another question by the Nananites. Hello, have been a fan of the channel since my MMA channel since the Nunes and Rousey fight. First is suggestion, check out Carlos Hathcock, and if you could time travel, what era would you go to? What ancient army is your favorite, and which one would you join? Thank you for both the channels, my friend. Much love from the North Pole. Thanks so much for the question, man. So, Carlos Hathcock.
This guy, personally, for me, when I look at all the different snipers in history, Carlos Hathcock is number one.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't have the most kills, but if you read his stories, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's like a movie.
Yeah, it's literally like a movie.
Did they make a movie off?
They might have. His nickname was the White Feather, so they might have made a movie off of him.
They should if they didn't. And then if we could time travel, what era would we go to? Honestly, right now is the best time. I don't know if I would time travel.
Yeah, I think we live in the best of times.
Best of times. Like, I would say even just a normal person today.
But I think he means it in the sense that if you had to just see what certain time was like.
Well, okay.
Now,
Not just to live.
this is how let me rephrase that question. What general would I want to go specifically and speak to?
Okay, that's
I'll answer. Maybe that'll answer his question better. I think if who I really, out of all the generals, I feel like I know what a lot of these generals would say if I spoke to them. The one I would love to speak to is Sun Tzu.
Oh, that's a good one.
Too much mystery around him. Too much.
For me, I'd probably say Musashi Miyamoto.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one.
To speak with him. Like, those are two great minds of history, you know, that not only spoke about, you know, wars and stuff, but just philosophy in general. Yeah, that's a good one, though. Sun Tzu would be a really cool one. And what ancient army is your favorite, and which one would you join?
Oh, man, that's...
Favorite ancient army.
Where do you start? Yeah. And you've got so many. You've got the Persian immortals during Darius the Great.
The 300 Spartans.
I don't know. I feel like it's too glorified.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody, I don't know. That's a tough one. Alexander the Great's army, maybe. I don't know.
An undefeated army.
I mean, that's a tough one. Yeah, the Macedonian phalanx, yeah. I mean, the Mongols, the Golden Horde, Tamerlane, that's tough. It's hard.
Ancient specifically.
You have the samurai during the late Sengoku period, who were known as the best fighters in the entire world during the late 1500s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's rough. I mean,
for me, if I were to choose, I thought the Spartans were pretty cool. I know they're like glorified a lot of as fictional, but just to see like what it really was.
I think I would join Alexander the Great's army.
Yeah.
I think I'd go there.
You have a really good time winning every battle.
It's just an adventure. You go from Europe all the way to India.
Yeah, it's an adventure. Pretty cool. Another question by Max. What would you say is the most difficult time period for a foot soldier throughout history? For example, being a soldier in Caesar's campaign through Gaul, Alexander's Macedonian army, the Napoleonic Wars, World War I, World War II, American Civil War, etc. Any would love to know your thoughts. Keep up the great work as always. Thank you so much, man.
I'll give that guy two examples. I can't pick one because they're both equally as bad. Being a foot soldier during Napoleon's invasion of Russia, or being a foot soldier during Hitler's invasion of Russia.
Yeah.
Horrible conditions. Horrible.
Yeah, World War I was really bad too.
World War I,
French wars.
Yep.
That would have been, I think, the worst. For me, I think the worst was World War I.
I would agree on that.
World War I was so crazy. Vietnam War was horrible too.
Yeah, that was rough. I mean,
especially with the chemical war. I mean, even World War I had a lot of chemical war.
Or even being a Roman soldier during the Battle of Cannae.
Yeah.
That would have been you were almost guaranteed death. Almost guaranteed.
Especially the Battle of Cannae, you know, you're on that side. Now, if you're on Hannibal's side, you're having a good time.
Yeah, if you're a Roman soldier,
yeah, that's a tough one.
That's rough. I would say either World War I or World War II, or possibly Napoleon's invasion of Russia.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Then next question by Frace. Love your stuff. Keep up the great work. What are some of your favorite lesser-known era stories in history?
Skanderbeg.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You got to mention that one. That's a glorious figure right there.
Yeah, Skanderbeg's like people are becoming a lot more known with other huge successful military leaders in history. He's the one that just isn't, which is weird because I think it was like a defensive thing.
Yeah, and it was a country that's very shrouded in mystery, and then they get this hero that's fighting against the most powerful empire in the world, and he's successful 25 times in a row.
Yeah, like if you hear that for anybody else, you think, oh, how are they not famous? But for him, he's not. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I would put him.
He fought the most powerful army in the world, the strongest empire in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Held them back for 25 years, did not lose a single battle he was in.
25 battles in a row to not lose. That's Alexander did 12. This guy did 25, over double. That's
insane.
That's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
And he lived until like in his 60s, you know. And then when he died, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire said Europe lost his sword and shield. And they named him Alexander because of how mighty he was on the battlefield.
Oh, yes.
And it's insane. He's like the one where I'm like thinking, how is he not known more?
And they even gave him the title Champion of Christ.
Yeah, he was one of the champions of Christ. He was like the most like successful one out of all of them. I like the Japanese samurai history.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Another one I wish was more popular was Tadakatsu Honda, who was regarded, people say Musashi, as I've mentioned before, people think Musashi is the greatest samurai. You can argue it's Tadakatsu Honda, but nobody knows about him. So that's pretty much ends the podcast for this one. We're going to go right into Patreon if you guys want to You guys could just subscribe there. It's like $5 a month. We go like extra every single time. And also you get all the early podcasts. So this podcast you guys are hearing came out last week for the patrons. So yeah, the next one's going to be out on Wednesday again. So I'll see you guys there.
Oh yeah, no, even before, like if you look at these guys were fighters. Like if you look at their fight against the English,
Yeah.
that's one thing. Go way back to the Roman times when they fought against. There was no. In that time, it wasn't called Scotland. It was just called Pictland. The Pictish people. They were Celtic.
Oh, okay.
These are basically the ancestors of the Scots.
Mm-hmm.
These people, that's where the Romans built Hadrian's Wall, the border between England and Scotland. Rome said, "You guys stay out, and we're definitely not going to mess with you."
Yeah.
Picts said, "Good, stay there. Don't come back."
Well,
They really beat the Romans bad. I mean, the Romans couldn't do it. They just couldn't fight with.
was that like the peak of the Celts?
No, that was the end.